conversation continues with Vikki Campion on today's News Talk TNT.
We're joined now with David Landini. He's the founder and president of the Riverina State Group. David, thank you for joining us today.
My great pleasure, Vikki. Very pleased to be here.
Well, you, first up, talk to us about the voting, because I think this is important. Talk to us about the voting trends that you've seen, which have seen the Greens and Sustainable Australia getting a massive number of votes, probably more than rural people put together.
That's right, Vikki. And I'll speak, this involves New South Wales and the areas of northern Victoria. And in New South Wales, there's a very large concentration of population of politicians in the Newcastle, Sydney and Wollongong areas. Now, within that population, there's a subpopulation that vote for parties such as the Greens and the Sustainable Australia Party, which used to be known as the Sustainable Population Party. But from memory, there's about 545,000 people in the last New South Wales state election voted for either of those parties in the Legislative Assembly. Now, 545,000 voters is more than every single voter west of the Great Dividing Range, and then cutting around to the south and east of the state with, I think it's even Monera and Bega. So the number of people that vote for parties that are opposed to the industries that the people west of the Great Dividing Range, so many people whose livelihoods depend on those industries, is far less than the number of people who vote for parties such as the Greens that are opposed to those industries. Now, I don't know if I've expressed that clearly, but I think...
No, you have. Because this is it. Basically, what you're seeing is we've got this historical trend of rural representation declining, and that's really why you're taking these steps now to form a new state comprising parts of New South Wales, Riverina and Northern Victoria.
That's right, Vikki. Yes. Yep. There's a huge segment of the New South Wales and Victorian population that vote for parties that are ideologically opposed to the industries their livelihoods depend on. That vote in itself is increasing, and if, for example, in the last Victorian state election, I think that was in 2022, the number of people who voted for the Greens in their Legislative Assembly went up 30,000. Now, 30,000, that's the equivalent of one half of one whole electorate. So that's a significant number of people who their vote as a proportion of the population is actually increasing. And that's a problem, but also, Vikki, you touched on another subject there about the amount of representation in the country areas compared to the urban areas. Now, because electorates are based on equal population, and in New South Wales, the state electorates are around about 50,000. There's 93 state electorates, and they're around about 50,000 each. They have to be within 5% of the average, so they vary around that a bit. But because population growth is mainly in Newcastle, Sydney, Wollongong, the non-urban areas of New South Wales actually lose one electorate, one member of parliament, over the whole state every 5 years. So non-urban representation in the New South Wales Parliament over the last 120 years, if you compare the first election in 1904 right through till today, and it's been a steady degression. The country areas, as I said, we've actually lost one member of parliament every 5 years, and the urban areas, of course, their representation has increased by one member of parliament every 5 years, on average, over the area of the non-urban areas of the state. So, as I said, our representation as a percentage or proportion of the New South Wales Parliament continually declines, and of course, within that urban population, there's an increasing number of people who vote for parties, as I said, who vote for parties such as the Greens and the Sustainable Australia Party, and that's a fairly new party. I think last New South Wales state election was the first election that it stood in, but it had candidates in nearly every electorate. They picked up about 105,000 votes over the whole state. So that more people are voting for them. Like the representation, the urban representation is increasing continually, and the number of people who vote for parties opposed to the industries that our livelihoods depend on is also increasing, and practically virtually all of those people who vote for Greens and the Sustainable Australia Party, they don't live in the non-urban areas. The vast majority live in the Newcastle, Sydney and Wollongong areas and the North Coast of New South Wales. And politics, Vikki, politics is a really, really important thing. Like governance is really important. And the governance that's, for us, people in the non-urban areas, that comes out of Newcastle, Sydney and Wollongong, some of that governance, some of that legislation is really, really detrimental for the people, for the livelihoods of the people in the non-urban areas.
Well, mate, it feels like at the moment most of it is. You know, almost every piece of ledge that's come out of the Parliament in the last couple of years just all seems to be about making it harder for farmers and people on the land. That's what it seems to be. And when you go through just like recently, like our last prime, where's Albo from? Braymore, Sydney.
Yep.
Where was Morrison from? Sydney, Cronulla. Where was Abbott from? Sydney. Where was Mr. Harbourside Mansion from? Sydney. I mean, all of our political leadership is just centred in Sydney, and that's, but even though that this is, you know, I can see the merits in this idea, there are going to be significant challenges, aren't there? But do you think you can do it?
Oh, we can do it all right. And I'm actually certain it will happen, Vikki, absolutely certain. And the main reason I'm so certain is because it has to happen. If we look at our options, and one option is to stay where we are and continue the decline, and the decline in a lot of areas, the decline in population, which is caused by a decline in jobs and employment.
Yeah.
And also, so if we stay where we are, that decline will continue. But if we change, well, we have to change, because we just cannot continue to go down the path we are, and that's what will happen. And it's not just a small number of people that think this is essential or necessary. There's a lot of support, certainly for the concept, and I'm really confident that will come through into political support as well, and we will eventually get there, Vikki. I've no doubt about it. Absolutely, sir.
Well, this is it. The group's got significant enthusiasm. You've already got 1,095 members.
That's right.
You need a couple of hundred more, don't you?
Yeah, the immediate plan is to register a political party called the Riverina State Party, and the name says it all. That expresses the objective of that party. And hopefully in time for the next federal election, to register a party federally requires 1,500 members. In practice, we have to have about 1,600 members to submit that membership list to the Australian Electoral Commission. I've got no doubt that they'll find a few there that their addresses don't match up and so forth. So the Australian Electoral Commission have recommended that any party, even though only 1,500 members are required, but they do recommend that any applicant puts in about at least 1,600 members. So we're on 1,095 at the moment, and we've got another 400 odd to get. But we will get that. It's a fairly slow process. It just doesn't happen, I can assure you. But it's only a case of finding the people. The supporters are there. There's absolutely no doubt about it. And
these are supporters that they support irrigation, they support timber, they support agriculture.
Well, that's right. I mean, all our basically, certainly, if not all, a very, very large percentage of our industries and our livelihoods depend on natural resource production or management or use of those natural resources, such as agriculture and specifically irrigation, and that's a huge issue west of the Great Dividing Range.
Yeah.
And at the moment, of course, these states, Victoria and New South Wales in particular, are subject to the Water Act 2007, the Basin Plan 2010, and there has been another bit of federal legislation passed recently, and I don't know what it's called, but it basically makes the Basin Plan 2010 worse. So we are subject to that now, and just on that, in case you or any listeners query that is of course federal legislation, and we are talking about a new state. But what I want to make clear, particularly with irrigation, is that irrigation is, in the Australian Constitution, Section 100, the authority of water in the rivers is subject to the states. Now, the federal government runs it via the Basin Plan at the moment, but only with the permission of New South Wales and Victoria. So either New South Wales, Victoria, or South Australia can actually withdraw from the Basin Plan. It's the most disastrous legislation the people in these areas have ever suffered under, and it's bipartisan. It's not the Liberal Party or National Party. It's not the Labor Party. It's all of them. So they all agree on that legislation, and it's the worst legislation economically and financially that we've ever suffered under. So because New South Wales and Victoria have permitted the federal government to run the irrigation system, and it's a complete disaster for the people in those areas, the conclusion that I've come to after a significant amount of time and seeing that nothing actually makes any difference, a Riverina State, by the fact that it's a state, will inherit or assume that authority over water in the rivers within that area. And that's one of the reasons, and it's a big reason, why there's a lot of support for this. And not necessarily entirely with farmers or irrigators, but there's a huge amount of townspeople who know that their livelihoods depend on agricultural production. And they know that if water goes out of the area, the farm production, the agricultural production will decline by some figure. It could be a multiple of 10 times, or in some cases 100 times. And I can say that surely because when there's a drought on and there's no production, that's zero production. You only need a little bit of water to have reasonably good production like irrigation water. So farm production can decline to zero. Now that will flow through to all the towns, all the local businesses, and there'll be a lot of people in those towns who lose their jobs. And they all know it, or I should say we all know it. I mean, I'm not a farmer, but my livelihood depends on farm production. And I know, as all the other, a lot of people in the country towns know, that if we keep being governed the way we are and that water keeps going out, and in Victoria, they've not only got the irrigation disaster, but of course, the Victorian state government just declared a total ban on native timber harvesting. You know,
I think that's why you're touching this. You've really got a pulse point here, because people, they've had enough. I would love to talk to you about this more. We are running out of time. David, let everyone know, where can they follow you? You're on Facebook, the Riverina State, Facebook group, the Riverina State group. You're on Gab, the Riverina State, Telegram, the Riverina State, Twitter, the Riverina, Instagram, the Riverina State, and even TikTok. Good on you.
Well, yeah, that's a bit of an adventure, but there's a lot of media platforms out there, and TikTok. Look, people recommended me to put information up there, which I do to the best of my ability. But TikTok, I haven't really. That's the latest one. There's only a couple of posts on that one. But there's all those different social media. There's a lot of information on the website, and I'll just give that website address, theriverinaState.com.au.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, David.
Yeah, no, great, Vikki.
You take care. This is Vikki Campion Show on TNT.